welcome to episode 31 of the RF Generation PlayCast. I'm Grey Ghost 81, and in this episode, we'll be discussing our spooky game for October 2016. This month, Floyd decided to take a look at one of the deeper cuts of the PlayStation 2 library with Shadow of Destiny, an adventure game with a quantum leap vibe that is sure to leave players a little unsettled. Returning to the show to join us in our conversation this month is Pam. Pam is the creator of the YouTube channel Cannot Be Tamed, as well as one of RF Generation's newest blog writers. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. You can listen to the show on iTunes and Podbean. As always, don't forget to log on to rfgeneration.com to join our playthroughs and discuss the amazing games we play together. Thank you as always for listening, and now, on with the PlayCast.
So, eve of Halloween, what are you guys doing on this spooky night?
This spooky night, I was carving pumpkins earlier with my kids, doing some jack-o'-lanterns, and listening to my neighbors who blew up a huge inflatable screen, playing some Ghostbusters 2. Not Ghostbusters 1, but Ghostbusters 2. It was an interesting choice. Have you guys seen that one?
Yeah, you gotta give that movie some love.
It's not bad. Not quite as good as the first, but still, pretty decent movie. Little Vigo, right? So do you guys have any personal, like, Halloween traditions? Anything you do specially for Halloween? I'm really interested in hearing about you guys from Canada. And you, Sean, anything new in Texas that you maybe haven't experienced before in New Jersey?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to maybe getting some trick-or-treaters, because we used to live on a dead-end street in New Jersey, and now we live in a pretty populated suburban area, so it'll be cool to actually see trick-or-treaters for the first time in years. But the one tradition I have with my wife is we watch the movie Trick or Treat. It's hard because there's so many movies called Trick or Treat or some variation thereof. This is the one that came out with in 2007. It has Anna Paquin and Brian Cox in it.
It's great. Yep.
It's such an incredible movie. It's like the perfect Halloween movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. My wife and I, we watch it every Halloween. We've been doing this for since the movie came out, since we found out about it. So that's the only tradition that we have.
Yeah, I love that movie. I saw it a few years ago, and it's one of those cool films that a lot of modern horror films are just all about torture and stuff, and they don't really give you those sort of Halloween feels, but this is a very specific Halloween movie that kind of goes on the tradition of, different Halloween traditions, I guess, right? And it follows like 4 or 5 different stories, and they all kind of culminate in one big story.
Yeah, and it's really cool. And there's been rumored, a sequel has been rumored and kind of announced within the past year. So hopefully they'll make another one. But,
cool.
Yeah.
Have you read the graphic novel?
I have not. Have you?
For that? Oh, I have a copy of it. I'll have to send it to you. Cool. You got to check it out, man. It's really cool. All right. How about you, Floyd, Pam? Do you guys have any special Halloween traditions?
I guess I guess the average age, especially on my street, has sort of outgrown Halloween. So there's not too much happening around me. But so Halloween has kind of, it's not really a thing that we really do anymore. I'll try to go to the movies and of course see something scary. Earlier in the week, I went with a friend to see Ouija. And that's so this family buys a Ouija board, and turns out that they end up channeling spirits that are living underneath the house, and of course the spirits start tormenting them, and because you don't mess with the dead.
Yeah, right. How about you, Pam? Anything special you do for Halloween?
No real traditions. I've sort of been sitting out Halloween for the last few years. I've lived in an apartment for 4 years or so, so we don't really
Yeah.
get any trick-or-treaters. Last year I did go to a Halloween party, but this year, since it's on a Monday, there's not a whole lot. So I've picked out a scary movie to watch tomorrow, which Will won't watch with me because he's kind of wimpy. But
Oh, I want to know what movie it is so that I can judge you. No, I'm kidding.
it's called "I'm the
I
Pretty
kid.
Thing That Lives in the House," and it's
Ooh, I haven't heard of
it's
that.
a new one. It just came on Netflix, at least Canadian Netflix. So it's a ghost story, basically about a nurse who goes to live with an old woman in a house.
Sounds creepy.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I have to check that out. Do you decorate or anything like that, at least the inside of your house? I know it would be hard to decorate the outside if you're in an apartment. Do you do anything inside to get
not
festive?
really. Just light some candles.
Okay, cool. Cool. Very cool. Well, speaking of Halloween, let's talk about our kind of favorite Halloween memories. Does anybody have any memories when they were a child or anything that kind of stands out?
I do. I have one. Nobody else has one?
I got to think about it.
Not everybody wants.
I thought about this because Rich had mentioned it. And one thing I remembered was I wanted to be like some kind of skeleton thing. And I got my mom to buy this makeup that looked really cool on the packaging, of course. That made your skin look all like weird and crappy and white and man, when she put it on me, it was like the worst pain. Like, I don't know if I had some kind of allergic reaction to it or something.
Oh, no.
And it just like caked on, and it was all like cracky and sharp and like sticking into my skin. And I was miserable. And my mom knew I wasn't BSing because I wanted it so bad, and I wasn't going to turn around and say I didn't like it. So the cool thing about it was we ended up just washing it all off, and she let me take her costume that she had made for herself, which was a homemade like spider costume, where she took a black sweatshirt and took black stockings and filled them with cotton balls and attached those as the extra legs and attached them to the wrist of the sweatshirt with fishing line. So when I raised my arms, I had, 8 legs, and she put makeup on me and like we put a ball cap on with like spider webs hanging off of it. It was really cool. So
that's really cool. Yeah, that's a really good like
awesome
Halloween memory. I wish my Halloween memories were that good.
That's like a memory that went from complete crap.
Yeah,
just like
it was
sugar, right?
nice. Mom really saved the day, and she, she had a kick-ass costume for herself, and it was cool that she was willing to let me have it because mine got botched. So it was cool.
Oh man, yeah. I don't remember my parents dressing up that much. I remember my mom doing like a witch one time when I was younger, but that was it. They weren't really into dressing up. I think more adults are probably into that now. We went to a party the other night for the kids, but it was an adult party as well, and all the adults were dressed up. But of course, I was the only one who wasn't. Even my wife dressed up.
Man.
I felt kind of bad. But I went there 2 years ago, and I was dressed up as Patrick Swayze from Point Break. And I went to this huge effort, and then I was the only adult that was dressed up. So like,
how do you go from the only one in costume to the only one not in costume?
I can't win, man. I cannot win. Yeah, I was so pissed. And it was sort of my revenge this year to not dress up. But of course, I looked stupid because I was like, oh, what are you, a dad? And I was like, oh thanks, yeah.
I remember one year when I was a kid, my mom and I were living at my aunt's house for a little bit, and my aunt lived in this really nice area with these really big houses. So I just remember going out trick-or-treating there, and I dressed up as the Phantom of the Opera, and all of the houses had like the best candy, and they gave so much of it. So that one sticks out for me.
What? A full-size Snicker?
Exactly.
A full-size Snicker bar? What? Yeah, those people are crazy that give out that kind of candy.
Yeah.
That has to get expensive. I'm like, yeah, you guys are getting some damn milk duds and some what are the dots, sweet tarts. No, I'm not giving out anything healthy, Sean. Yeah, I guess like Halloween memories for me, I just remember wearing those like really plastic costumes. I went as Spider-Man one year, and I remember like having that. Do you remember those like cheap vinyl costumes with like the plastic mask with the rubber band that went around the back? That would, your hair would get stuck in, and it would just pull your hair.
I'll hold on to that for a second. But yeah, go on.
and then they had this little mouth hole, this little slit, and you breathe on it, and your face is just your neck, like sweat's just going down your neck because you're so hot. You're just breathing hot stuff on your face. It's awful. But you know, when you're a kid, it's annoying, but like you can just push through it because you're getting all that candy, right? So great.
Yeah. I do remember those plastic masks, and I had one. You remember the Ghostbusters cartoon with Egon, and he had that like swirly gray hair on the top of his head and the glasses. I had one of those masks of him, and I was trick-or-treating, and I was a little kid, and some old guy answers the door and says, "Who are you supposed to be, Paul Newman?" And I was just a little kid. I didn't know who the hell that was. So I was like, "No, Egon."
Are you the dude on the salad dressing?
I don't even think it was that big, like the salad dressing, if I even knew about it. I still didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
Anyone else? Halloween memories? Floyd, you gotta have something, man. What's your favorite costume?
I remember when I was really young. I think I was 4 or 5. I went to a Halloween party, and there was this kid dressed up as a dinosaur, and I don't know why, but I really like loved his tail for some reason. So I kept like chasing this guy around the room trying to grab his tail. And I think like my favorite Halloween costume that I ever had was I was a police car one year. This again when I was really little. I was a police car one year, and of course like we've all been clowns at one point. It's fun, and it's really too bad that like my area has sort of outgrown it, because it'd be fun to do it again. It's nice to do something like youthful and fun.
Yeah, well, keep that spirit alive, man. You got to plan next year and do that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And so the last thing I wanted to talk about, any songs that are kind of focused around Halloween that you guys really like listening to? Or just songs, that kind of, if you're making a Halloween playlist, that you would put on it.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything in mind, so I'm open to suggestions.
All right, I'll start. One of my favorite songs is from the movie The Lost Boys. I love that song, "Cry Little Sister." You guys know which one I'm talking about?
Oh man, it's on the tip of my brain. I don't think I remember it.
Oh, you'll have to check that out. You have to pull that up on YouTube or something. It's great. It's kind of rocking song with these like kind of kids chanting in the background. It's pretty awesome. And then of course the Munsters theme. I actually introduced the Munsters to my kids tonight. It's actually on Netflix. So I thought, well, what's something good I can let them watch for Halloween and that doesn't scare the living crap out of them? And I was like, oh, the Munsters, why not? Let's see if it's on there. And they watched like 4 or 5 episodes. They love it. I think it's great. I didn't think they would get that type of... It's a little bit more adult humor sometimes. I didn't think they would get it, but yeah, they think it's awesome. So
sweet.
Cool.
What about
anything else?
Halloween by the Misfits?
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, great song. Mm-hmm. How about Halloween? Yeah, it's a great song. It reminded me, you were talking about Trick or Treat earlier. One of the other movies, speaking of music, there's another movie called Trick or Treat that involves a rock hero like Sammy Hain, and it has Ozzy Osbourne and Gene Simmons in it. The movie does. So, yeah.
Well, I guess you kind of have one more chance to plug or talk about your She Hate Horror podcast. I guess that's wrapping up or wrapped up already. And how did it go? Do you have any plans for it to continue? Like,
well, how did it go? Well, let's see. Our plan was to watch 31 films before Halloween, and we've released 8 now. So that's how it went. Do we plan on keeping going and finishing it? Yeah, we do. We just finished up recording for Night of the Comet. I don't know if any of you've seen that. It's sort of a cult classic sort of film. It's not really scary. But it's just totally 80s and a fun film to watch. And then we just started watching The Abyss, so we're gonna record for that. Have you seen that before?
One.
Sounds very
I saw
familiar.
that a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's a good flick.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen it before. My wife's never seen it before. We were watching it the other night, and we were just so exhausted. We fell asleep like 45 minutes in, and that doesn't say anything about the movie. The movie's great. It's really exciting. We were just so exhausted. The baby kept us up the night before, and soccer practice and work and everything else. We just ended up waking up at like 11:30 or 12 at night and looked over, and the movie was over, and my wife was asleep at the other end of the couch. We had both fallen asleep, so it's kind of funny. That's been the tough thing about doing this new podcast, is just having the energy to do it, to stay up, to watch a film, and then go upstairs and record. It makes for
I think
tough
that's
viewing.
one thing a lot of people take for granted, is that like there's a lot of work involved in podcasting. It doesn't seem like there is, but
yes, there is.
There is a lot of work.
There is a lot of work involved. Speaking of new podcasts, Pam was on our show in February. She joined us for Folklore, and she's back again to join us for Shadow of Destiny. So thanks a lot for joining us, Pam. We appreciate it. And now you've got a new podcast, right? Because you didn't have the second podcast, this is your only podcast. You actually do YouTube videos for Cannot Be Tamed, but you have a new podcast.
Yeah, sure. It's called Media Mavens, and myself and my co-host Riley, who is a friend I know from video games and now from real life as well. And we talk about sort of all kinds of media. We talk about video games, movies, TV shows, books. We usually start off with a little bit about what we've been playing, and then we usually have a topic for the show. So just yesterday we recorded with a guest, Jonathan, and we recorded an episode about Luke Cage. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the new Netflix show, right?
Yeah,
Are you
I liked
enjoying
it.
that?
You'll have to listen to the episode to know my full thoughts, but I really liked the first the first half, and it sort of went downhill a little in the second half, but I still overall enjoyed it.
Very cool. Yeah, I've been watching Daredevil lately. We popped in a few, but with the new podcast, we've been trying to watch as many movies as we can. But I watched a few episodes of Daredevil, and I've really liked what I've seen of that. But I haven't tried Luke Cage yet. I'll give that a shot. And so you've got there's some new news going on with you as well. You've been a loyal contributor to RF Generation since our last show. I think I contacted you shortly after February and asked you to post some videos on the site. You've been doing that. We really appreciate that.
Glad to share
So
them.
Thank you very much. And you also got picked up by RetroWare,
just,
correct?
a month or two ago.
Oh, really cool. Congratulations.
Very cool. So
Thank
that
you.
made...
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, your stuff's really great. We enjoy watching it, and so you're be a fine contributor for them as well. And so you got to go to RWX this year. For those of you who don't know, Retro World Expo, RF Generation. We usually have a really big presence there. We actually sponsored it again this year. And if you guys listen to the Collector Cast, you know that one of the Collector Cast members, Bill, good friend of ours, he's actually one of the guys who heads up that project and gets that going up in Connecticut. Floyd and I, we went last year, right?
We did.
Floyd had a
It was
blast.
so much fun, and it was kind of a bummer that we missed out this year. But I guess for both of us,
man.
kind of life got in the way for whatever reason. And but hopefully, maybe we'll just do every odd number. We'll go to the first one, then the third one, and then we'll figure something out.
Yeah. Yeah, my poor wife had to put up with me that weekend just moping around, and the reason I couldn't go partly was because I just had a third child, recently. He's 5 months old. And then I always do an annual guys trip, and it was the weekend before, so expenses and things didn't work out. But I was supposed to go down to Florida for my guys trip, to a football game in Florida. It was Florida Gators versus LSU. And of course, Hurricane Matthew comes through that weekend. And so we had to kind of punt and find a house up in the mountains to kind of hang out in, and it just rained the entire
That's really
time.
too bad.
So on top of that trip being kind of ruined, though I still had a good time with my friends, we're good friends, and we had a wonderful time with each other. But on top of that, I missed Retro World Expo. And so I was awful. My wife and I ended up doing one of those escape rooms one Friday night, and to kind of get my spirits up with some other friends, and that was really cool. So she was a real trooper and helped making my weekend really good. But having to look at my phone with the guys from RF Generation, like sending texts and pictures of them hanging out and eating mashed potato pizza, Floyd. You know what I'm talking about. It made me a little sick to my stomach and just made me miss everyone. I really missed hanging out this year. And Pam, you were there this year. You and Will went, right?
It was a lot of fun. I think it was probably the best convention I've been to.
Wow, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah. Especially being its second year.
It was great. Bill did a fantastic job putting it all together. And it was also great just because I knew so many people. Like, I got to meet so many people from RF Gen and from RetroWare and just people I know from Twitter and YouTube. So it was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you actually got to sit in on a panel, right?
Yeah, I sat in on the RetroWare panel. I didn't know I was going to be on it. They sort of asked me the day of. There was a lot of people on the panel because there were a lot of people there from RetroWare. Yes. So I just sort of sat in the back. Most people had a new video or something to show. I didn't have a whole lot to say.
Yeah. Floyd and I were on a panel with the guys from the Collector Cast during the first year, but we saw the panel for RetroWare, and it was like you said, the entire table was full. It's just people standing up in the background, because there's just so many people that contribute to that. But it's very cool, and I'm so glad to hear you say positive things about, because I know you and Will have been to several conventions. I've only been to Retro World Expo. This is the only video game convention I've ever been to, and I had a blast when I went. And I was like, well, is it the convention, or is it just hanging out with my buddies from RF Generation? And though I love hanging out with my friends and stuff, I thought the convention was really good too, and I can only imagine it was much better this year.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of guests, a lot of panels. The vendor floor was amazing. So many game vendors, and I also got some non-game stuff. It was really great. The arcade room was neat, and the auction on the Saturday night was a lot of fun.
Oh, love that. Yeah. I actually scribed for that. Duke and I did that, and I think I saw him in a picture. He was doing the same thing. I think he and Adam were doing it this year together. So very, very cool. Well, I do want to give one final update, Sean. I know you're curious. Pokemon Go, where I'm at now, right?
Tell me all about it.
R.I.P. Pokemon Go.
Oh, you're done
R.I.P.
with it. What happened?
I'm done, man. Let me tell you what happened. So my son, who I told you is obsessed with it, he ran out the minutes on our phone.
The
data?
Not the minutes, but the data. Like, within 4 days of our plan. So I've had to shut it off, and I haven't been able to use it, because he blew it up. So during that time, I've just been walking, and I've just been listening to a lot more podcasts and things. And I found that I enjoy my walks and my exercise more when I'm not looking at my phone and checking it the entire time. And so,
I think
it's
done. I think that's sort of the thing.
Being away from it for a little while killed it for me. Yeah.
When you're doing it, you don't realize you're checking your phone every 2 seconds, and when you sort of get unglued from it, it's kind of like a relief. But I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's not fun. But I can totally see how it's so easy to burn through your data plan in a couple days. But yeah, no, it's I'm glad you had fun while it lasted. And
I don't regret it or anything. It's just a lot of picking up the same Pokemon all the time. I walk the same route, so there's I never really find anything new. And so when you stop finding new things, it stops being a lot lot more exciting. So But I'm done.
Since we got
It was
Pam
fun
here,
while it
I
lasted. No
want to know
regrets.
her take on Pokemon Go, and I want to know if she ever did you ever go to the ferry docks or the what do they call it, like Jacqueline Harbor, because that's such a big Pokemon Go hub. Like everyone kind of gathers there.
I heard that. My entire experience with Pokemon Go was Will downloaded it on his phone while he had a broken arm. So we went out to walk the dog because he wanted to catch some Pokemon. And he was like, here, catch this Pokemon for me. So I flicked some balls at it and nothing happened. And I was like, this game's stupid. And then I that was my entire Pokemon Go
that was it.
experience.
So
That was
yeah.
it. That's great. So there's some new things in the news we should probably talk about. I know, Sean, you wanted to talk a little bit about Nintendo Switch.
Yeah,
right?
I thought we could give it just a minute or two real quick, because it's one of those things where it's always fun to talk about something before it comes out and kind of speculate. And, you know, the reveal trailer, the announcement trailer showed actually a lot, and you can see kind of analysis videos of that trailer of the hardware. Mm-hmm. People are picking out what kind of ports it has, and somebody noticed that it has an SD card slot underneath the little kickstand thing. So there's a lot of things you can glean from that trailer that they had. And just two things I wanted to touch on was the overwhelming positive response that I feel like I'm seeing on it, which is really cool and doesn't ever happen anymore, especially with Nintendo. And the other thing, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the screen size, because for some reason I got kind of, I don't know if confused is the right word, but I thought it would be a lot bigger than it actually is. But then I did a little research, and I think I'll be okay with it, because one of the things that makes me really into handheld gaming was when the screens got big enough for me to be comfortable with them, I guess is the only way to put it. So the PlayStation Portable, for example, has a 4.25-inch screen. The Vita and the 3DS XL both have 5-inch screens. The 3DS on the larger, the top screen. And the Nintendo Switch has a 6.2-inch screen. So it's going to be more than an inch bigger than the Vita and the 3DS top screen. So at first, when I saw a 6.2 inch, that's actually the size of my phone, not the screen itself, but my phone itself. And I was thinking that's not big enough. I can't see myself clipping controllers onto that. But just thinking about it and thinking about how big the Vita is and the hardware on that, and I just thought I don't know why I just overthinking the screen size a lot, and I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. But yeah, it looks looks awesome, and the fact that most people think it looks awesome is really cool, and it looks like the promises of the Wii U are going to be fulfilled with this thing. And they have a bunch of third-party support, which is what has been their major problem for years now. So, yeah, I just was curious what you guys thought about it.
My Facebook and Twitter just exploded with all this, excitement and positive response for the Nintendo Switch. Even people who haven't been playing games in years are excited for this. So. And I it's Nintendo, so it's always going to have that nostalgic thing for people. But it's really cool to see just an overwhelmingly positive response for this.
Yeah, I tried to ignore a lot of that. I don't know. I like to kind of just watch videos and things like that on specs and get sort of if you can, unbiased opinion about it. So I try not to buy in and look any of that stuff through Twitter. And I watched some videos on it, and it looks cool. I think the screen size is probably okay, Sean. I mean, another inch, that's pretty big for a handheld, and I guess they want to keep it in the handheld realm, so that you feel comfortable carrying it around. You're not lugging around some, big piece of hardware. I really like what they're doing. I like the whole idea of, just putting something in the HDMI port. It's almost like a Fire Stick or something like that, right? Am I Is that what you guys saw? It's sort of like a Fire Stick, and it just goes from your it just syncs up like a Bluetooth or something from like your Nintendo Switch to the TV, and you can play games on your TV through that with the handheld, like you would sort of the controller for the Wii U. That's what I understand, right?
I think it's more like a docking station. I don't know. Can you play on the handheld and the screen? Did they show that at all? Okay.
Yeah, from what I understand, the docking station is just something to sort of charge it and something for like aesthetic sort of looks, to just sit there. And you actually hold it, and it's just sort of like it's sort of like a just a Wii U controller, where you can just sit there and just play it as straight through your TV when you're nearby your TV, and then you can just pull that that controller / handheld. You can take that with you, and you can play it solo, or you can pull off the little controllers that are on the sides. You can pull those off and use those for like two-player, like two-player games like Mario Kart and things like that. That's what I saw in the sort of the review of the console that I watched on TV. And again, some of this may just be speculation. I don't know. It's early.
And they're saying now they're not going to announce any of the technical specs until January. So we'll see what leaks out before then. But I'm wondering, Pam, what do you think about the Switch? Are you paying attention to it at all, or psyched about it, or?
I haven't paid too much attention to it. I didn't watch the commercial. I just read what people were saying about it. Nintendo kind of lost me with the original Wii, so I'm sort of indifferent, I guess. My main thing is controllers. Like taking off those controllers off the side of that thing and using them like sideways. They're little teeny tiny things. Just like, I don't want it.
Yeah, it doesn't look or it doesn't like look or sound comfortable, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, my understanding is you don't have to take them off to play it. You can take them off to play it single, or you can just hold it like a handheld. And so the thumbsticks on each controller is, you're playing like with two thumbsticks. You see what I'm saying? But you can take them off and you can play them two-player. Now that looks awful because you're holding this little tiny controller in
like a
each
stick
hand.
of gum.
That looks awful. Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that taking off. But we're sort of in a generation. To me, it feels like more people are playing handheld. More people like handheld as opposed to console. And if you can combine those two things, which Nintendo seems to have done successfully, I think that's what all the excitement's about. I think it's a great idea, and I think it'll do well. And they're going back to cartridge-based games too, right?
Yeah, they're
some. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it'll be download games as well.
Yeah, probably the majority will be download, but I'm sure they're going to be like similar cartridges to what the 3DS has.
Have they said anything about the hard drive? Because they've had very small hard drives recently in the recent consoles.
I don't think that has come out at all.
Yeah, I think they're kind of holding back those specs. My understanding from reviews and people that I've heard say things about it is I don't know that it's going to look any better than the Xbox One or the PS4. I mean, as far as, the graphically, I just don't think it's going to look any better than those. I think those will still be superior consoles. But this is just a different take, and they're just kind of going their own way, as Nintendo always does. And whether I guess whether you like it or not, I've always been a Nintendo fan, but Pam, I'm kind of like you. I kind of fell off with the Wii. I guess whether you like it or not, it's good to see that they're still doing their own thing and they're still keeping the video game industry interesting, right? So I like that about them, and it's good to have some. Whereas Xbox and PlayStation seem to be competing on the same level, Nintendo is just kind of that kid that just goes and kicks the ball against the wall to himself, So, and just say, hey, I'm just going to be over here making money, So. And Sean, you also had mentioned to me that you wanted to talk a little bit about the new Godzilla movie, right?
So I appreciate just giving me like a minute or two of airtime for this, because I was so excited about it. And I did go with a buddy of mine, but he wasn't as psyched about it as I was. And then my one friend Matt from New Jersey, who's the person who got me into Godzilla. It had such a limited theatrical run that he didn't get a chance to see it, so I couldn't even talk to him about it. So I just want to say that the new Japanese Godzilla movie, Shin Godzilla, that just came out is an absolute masterpiece. It is the best Godzilla movie to come out since the original, and it is it was just so incredible that I went and saw it twice, and I never do that. I'm the kind of person, I don't ever go to the movie theaters twice. So for people who don't know, this was co-directed by Hideaki Anno, who was the director of Neon Genesis Evangelion. So if you like anime and you like Evangelion, like, he was one of the co-directors of this movie, and it really shows in the movie. This is the first hard reboot of the Godzilla franchise. Of the 30 or so movies that have been made, everyone has either been a direct sequel to Godzilla 54 or a sequel of one of those sequels, but this one just throws the entire canon out and starts fresh. And the fascinating thing about it is it's what would happen in present day Japan if a monster came out of the ocean and attacked Tokyo. And it's such a cool thing to see, because Godzilla 54 was, everybody knows it's an allegory for the atomic bombs that were dropped on Japan, but none of us lived through that. None of us, it's a history lesson to all of us. But this movie strongly resonates with the, the tsunami and the Fukushima nuclear disaster that happened in 2011. And so to see a movie that's based on something that actually happened in recent memory, it's just really powerful. And especially with Hideaki Anno directing it, it's just so powerful. And it's if you're into Godzilla, you're in. You got to go see it. And if you're into those movies from the 70s that were very dialogue heavy, because this is a very dialogue heavy movie, it actually takes the perspective of the government and what they would do in a real situation like this. And it's kind of a criticism of the government. It's a really deep movie, and the symbolism and the allegory of what's going on. But if you remember movies like The Network or Kramer versus Kramer, with just really dialogue heavy procedural kind of things, that's what this movie reminded me of. And they have a lot of they use a lot of music from the original movie mixed in with music from Evangelion. It's just really an amazing movie. I could talk about it for a while, but I appreciate you just giving me a minute to geek out about it. And honestly, being a Godzilla fanboy, it's kind of an easy pick for me. But I think people who would see this movie would be extremely surprised how awesome it is. So that's it. I'll shut up now.
Are you going to check it out, Rich? Because you recently picked up Red Spectacles, and that's Hideaki Anno too, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll definitely check it out. I mean, Sean, you mentioned it was sort of on a limited run, and I have it checked around here. I own the original Godzilla. I love it. I have to ask you a question, Sean. Is Godzilla, is it CG, or is it human in a kaiju suit?
So that's a big point of controversy. Well, I wouldn't call it controversy, more like fanboy rage or whatever. But this is the first Godzilla that wasn't suit. What do they call it? Suitmation or suitimation. They did do motion capture, so it's basically mocap with CG over it. So no guy in a suit for the first time in the Japanese movies, anyway. So.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I don't think the one in the Matthew Broderick film was in a suit. The Godzilla no one talks about, right? All right, cool. So let's talk a little bit about pickups. You guys picked up anything good? Pam, you've been to Retro World Expo. You and Will had to pick up some, probably a ton of games, right? Knowing Will, did you guys pick up anything that kind of stands out this trip?
Will picked up a whole bunch of stuff that I don't care about. I picked up a few things. I picked up Bomberman on PS1 and Dracula Unleashed on Sega CD. A few PS2 games. I got the Obscure sequel, although it's not made by the same people. It's called Obscure: The Aftermath, which is like a survival horror co-op game. And another one by Konami, it's called Firefighter FD18, I think. It's like you go around and you put out fires and you rescue people.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I've been tempted to pick that one up a few times, but it seems interesting. I love Fireman on Super Famicom, so I was wondering if it was, kind of a more modernized version of that game or not.
I'm not sure.
Not sure. But yeah, it looks cool. All right. Sean, Floyd, any new pickups for you guys?
No, nothing new here.
Nothing new?
Waiting on my pre-order for Final Fantasy 15. That's about a month away, so
okay.
nothing happening for about a month.
Cool. Yeah, I had a few decent pickups recently. My copy of Clock Tower, Super Family version, finally came in, so I was going to dig into that this month, but looks like I'm not going to have time to do that. I picked up a copy of Shenmue 2, really cheap. Buddy and I went out and the store, I don't know if they had it mispriced or what, but it was just sitting there and I was like, well, I don't have it. I'll go ahead and grab that, Xbox only title. The other day I picked up a copy of Quake 2. I love Quake 2. It's one of my favorite first-person shooter games, and I used to have it on PC, and I remember it really clearly. So I picked this copy up for PlayStation 1, so I'm interested to check it out. Picked up Fear Effect on PlayStation 1, which I haven't played, but I hear is a pretty decent game. Have any of you played that
Fear
one?
Effect, which one's that? Because it sounds really familiar.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know a whole lot about the game, but I've just seen a few reviews and people sort of recommending it. And so they did Fear Effect 1 and Fear Effect 2, so I'm kind of excited to check that one out.
Is that sort of like anime-ish, or like anime in the art style? Okay, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. And then I picked up Spider-Man for Sega Genesis Complete in Box. I hear it's a pretty great game on the Genesis, and once again, just adding to my pile of Genesis collection. And then, Sean, you might be interested in this one. I don't know if you've seen this anime before, but have you ever seen Battle Angel?
I have not. Okay.
You should check it out. Actually, I found it on DVD at one of the used media stores in the area, and I just was beside myself because I used to have it on VHS. It was like a white VHS cassette, and I got rid of it, years ago. And I was super stoked to find it again. So yeah, if you haven't seen Battle Angel, check that one out. It's a really great one. I'm not an anime guy. I'll admit that, but I saw this years ago. A friend of mine showed it to me, and I loved it.
Nice.
So.
I'll have to check it out.
All right. Have you guys been playing anything this month? Any cool Halloween titles, or just anything in general?
I am still playing Yakuza 5 and also Crimson Gem Saga, which I wrote about on the blog on the PSP. A nice little Japanese style, actually produced in Korea, turn-based RPG. And I don't mean to derail, but can I sneak in a little quick review of the concert I went to last night? Okay.
Sure. I know you're excited about this, and it was a really good music recommendation. I've already ordered 2 vinyls. So I let my wife listen to it today on the way back from the soccer game, and my wife and kids both love it. So thanks for turning me on to that. I appreciate it. Well, I'll give you the floor.
Again, I'll try not to take too long, but I went and saw Kishi Bashi last night, and I just love his music. He's such a genius. He's like, I don't know. He's a very good violinist, a very good vocalist, and he does, beatboxing and these weird loops, and he plays piano, and his whole band was in Halloween costumes, and the whole thing was very theatrical, and his new album is really, really good. So sometimes when you go see a concert and a band's playing all stuff from their new album, it's like, oh, come on, play your old songs that everybody knows and likes. But like, I know his new album as much as the other one, so it was pretty cool. And
which is the new album?
Sonderlust is the new one. Yeah.
Yes, it's actually my favorite.
That one's really good. I think that one. It's not. I don't think it's quite as like powerful and uplifting as his first two albums, but I love the like 70s, like the ELO Pink Floyd kind of vibe that comes off that album. It's really well done. But the whole concert, man, was like, it was just like a party. He had, like I said, his whole band was in costumes, and there was just confetti flying and balloons everywhere. And he stage dove out into the crowd, and some handler like handed him a violin, and he was playing the violin while he was crowd surfing. And for the encore, they actually like completely unplugged and came down into the crowd and played their song Manchester, with the crowd singing, like completely quiet, just with the crowd singing along with them, like walking around the crowd. It was so awesome. What a great show, and awesome performer. And I would just recommend Kishibashi to anybody who is into like cool music. So.
Yeah, he's sort of a local for me, surprisingly. He was born in Seattle, but he grew up in Norfolk, Virginia.
Cool.
His parents taught at Old Dominion University, and so he grew up in that area. And I have a good friend of mine from that area, and I asked if he knew him, and he didn't. They went to two different high schools, of course. But he lives in Athens, Georgia now, which isn't very far. A place that I've been to several times. Just a great hotbed. It's like Austin. It's just like a great hotbed for indie music. And I know Kishibashi's played with Of Montreal and some other light bands that I'm really into. So yeah, definitely. That was a good suggestion, man. I really appreciate that. So. All right, shall we talk about the game finally? We're 45 minutes in. All right, Floyd, get us started, man.
So for October, that we like to do something that's a little horror themed or thriller themed, or just in general something that's kind of darker, keeping in the spirit of Halloween. So this month we played Shadow of Memories. If you're in Europe, it's called Shadow of Memories. If you're in North America, like the rest of us, it's called Shadow of Destiny. And that it's for the PS2, came out in 2001. It's an adventure game, sort of like kind of in like that point and click kind of style, but you do control your character in like a 3D space. It's developed by.
Yeah, I would say this is very much point and click game. Yeah,
developed by Konami, Konami Computer Entertainment, published by Konami. Like I said, released in 2001 for PS2. Later ported to Xbox, which was a Europe only release, and came to PC in 2002. And I think a few of us, in particular, Sean, you played it on the PSP, right?
You know what? Actually, I was going to, and I didn't like the way it played, so I switched back and played through it on the PS2.
All right,
yeah,
so we'll probably touch on that. It's on a few platforms, and it's the whole premise of this game is within sort of the opening 5 minutes, your main character Ike is murdered, and you meet this mysterious entity thing called the homunculus, and the homunculus gives you a chance to come back to life if you can prevent your murder. So that's sort of the main motivation for the game. I think.
Yeah, of course you can be murdered several times and keep coming back to life.
That's one thing that really got me by surprise. I came in expecting that it's going to be like a murder mystery, and I'm going to try to solve this and prevent my murder, but it seems that Ike's murderer is always one step ahead of him, so it became like trial and error pretty quickly. At least that's how it felt to me. Is there anything you guys want to add about the story or?
I think it's interesting. I didn't realize this until just now because I'm looking at the Wikipedia for this, and the producer of this game, Junko Kawano, was actually a lead designer on the first two Suikoden games, which we've played both of those for the RFGen playthrough. So that's kind of interesting. Some good. When Konami was making good games, because we all know they suck and blah blah blah. But yeah, but that's kind of interesting. I'm not seeing too many thematic or gameplay connections between those two, so that's pretty neat. I love them.
Obviously the hair on some of the characters.
Yeah,
wild hair.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, this is a really crazy game. What an odd plot. I'm like you, and that it's kind of cool. Like, you think it's a murder mystery game, right? And you're trying to figure out through the whole game who murdered you, why you've suddenly died walking down this, just random German street. And that was sort of the hype and why we sort of picked this game. And Floyd, I know, was kind of struggling in October with picking this game, or with picking a game sort of in general. We always typically do a Castlevania game, so when we kind of asked him to sort of, well, we didn't ask him to veer away from it, but to make his own decision, it was sort of like, well, let's try something different, because we've played Castlevania games for the last 3 years, And so when he mentioned this game, when I read sort of the plot summary, I was like, oh, this sounds really cool. It seems really interesting, a little bit of time travel. It'll be fun. But Floyd, I kind of want to know what made you pick this game, like overall.
I think I'm always looking to add hidden gems to my collection, and this is definitely one of those more obscure titles. And I think it really is one of these games where you either love it or you hate it. Sean seems to be a big fan of this game, and I really like sort of the idea of like the time travel thing, as you already mentioned, and trying to solve your own murders is a really cool sort of starting point for a game. And it's got things like where if you do something in the past, it reflects in the future. So it's one of those games that it sounds better. Like a description of the game ends up sounding better than the actual game itself. And I'm not knocking it in any way. It's just maybe it didn't quite live up to my expectation. But all that being said, I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I feel the same way about the game, and I'd been every time I go to like the local video game store, I'm always picking up a copy of it's on Xbox 360. I don't know if any of you've ever played it, but it's called
Soul
Murdered.
Suspect?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes. And I keep picking it up, and for some reason, like having that sort of idea of being murdered and then trying to figure out who did it, that is sort of a plot line that's always sort of appealed to me. I don't know what it is. It's probably all the crappy detective stories and Dateline that my wife makes me watch all the time. So, but have you played that game, Pam?
I did.
Did you like it?
They added some sort of action elements that I didn't think were necessary, but I liked the overall game.
Yeah, cool. Well, I thought this game, and going back to Shadow of Destiny, I thought this game, in terms of action, I guess that's one of the things for me. I'd mentioned that, Floyd had mentioned, and I'd sort of said, yeah, it's definitely a point-and-click game. There's not a lot of action sequences, and everything sort of takes place in this small, fictional German town.
Yeah, that's right.
Floyd?
I mean, there really is no action except for a handful of moments where you're on a timer and you have to, grab a rope so you don't fall off a ledge, or, protect yourself from being stabbed in the back.
But you got to go back in time to make sure you grab a rope that's not
That's
old
right.
and frayed.
Yeah, I made that
from
mistake.
years later, right? I did too.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's really gamey about it is you have a limited number of time travel points, I guess you could say, but there's more of those orbs scattered around the town. You can pick them up and travel back and forth in time.
Yeah, the orbs were kind of strange to me. I don't know what anybody else thought about that. There really never was any sort of explanation as to what those were, or did I miss that? Was there any explanation as to what those were? Like those orbs? Like I know you collect them, and you have to have them to actually time travel, but it seemed like maybe there was something just put in the game so that, you know, when you had a time limit, it would make you like scurry and kind of freak out a little bit about you know, finding one. So that you
I
could
really
move
don't know, because I don't think it was explained that you only have a limited number of time travels, and that if you run out, you have to go collect those orbs. Because it just happened to me at one point where I pulled up, in the game they call it a digipad, and that's what you use to travel back and forth in time. I pull it up, and like I'd select the era that I wanted to travel to, and nothing happened. So, and you know, I look at then I looked at the time travel meter, and it was empty. And that was the first time that I ran out of those like time travel points. It was weird. So I think probably something that could have been explained, or at least clarified a little better.
I think it was
Pam,
in the
you're gonna say
manual,
something?
but I don't think it ever got mentioned in the actual game. Yeah.
Those darn manuals. They're there for some reason, right?
I thought it was kind of weird that you start the game with a maxed out, meter of those energy points or whatever they're called, and then you go down to having none for seemingly no reason.
Mm-hmm.
But
doesn't Homunculus get mad at you or something and take
like
them all
that.
away?
But I did find that they're, depending on the time zone that you're in, they're always in the same place. So in situations where I needed one, I usually knew where to go to get one. And you usually only need one at a time. And wherever you're going to, you can pick one up, and sometimes you accumulate a couple, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, and one of the places I know would go back in time, and there were two that were fairly close to each other, so I would just grab both of those really quick, just in case I needed them. But yeah, I felt like they were kind of I don't know, to me it was sort of like a forced convention that was on this game, where you have to have them to time travel, but, you have this time running in the background where I guess we should explain that when you do time travel, if you go back in time, you can still die if your hour of death in the future or present day, if it reaches that, so you have two like 2 meters, one that keeps time in the past and one that keeps time in the present. This sounds confusing.
Well, you basically have
but,
at least 2 clocks running at the same time.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
because even if you time travel to a different time, even if you time travel, you're still, the time in the previous timeline is still going. It's weird.
Yeah, and I found a couple. I don't know if you guys did. You have to pay attention to the hour, whatever they prime time or whatever you want to call it, when the actual murders happen. And if you forget when it is, it's it's 10:30 p.m. and you're out, goofing around or trying to figure out a puzzle or something. A few times I forgot even what time I needed to do something by. And I think, there's a notes section, but I felt like the notebook wasn't updating enough with what I was doing in the game sometimes. So I found that to be a little bit unreliable, but I, as with a lot of games, I just I did use a walkthrough and kind of buzz through this game because I have played it before, so I didn't want to frustrate myself with it, quite frankly. So,
Yeah, it's fairly linear as far as gameplay goes. I mean, it's going to direct you in sort of the right paths. Of course, this game, we should mention, has 5 different endings, and depending on choices you make during the game, now not all choices, but there's some heavier choices in the game, and even sometimes it's sort of like, are you sure you want to make this choice? I found that kind of comical. I was like, what? Why is it kind of asking me this? But those are sort of your heavier choices in the game, and those are the ones that sort of dictate what your major outcome's going to be. Of course, the game also has like completion percentages as well, so you can actually kind of quote 100% this game by doing, certain things. Like I know there's one where you can like bring a little girl a kitten or something like that. I didn't bother with those sort of things. But it's a fairly linear game. I mean, it's going to point you in certain directions, and there were a few times when I got stuck. I have to admit, and I had to look at a walkthrough once during my playing this game, and that was where you have to part of the game where you have to find the ladder. You know what I'm talking about? Oh
yeah, that's near the beginning, isn't it? Chapter 2 or something.
Mm-hmm. It's an early chapter. It is. That's where you have to keep the tree from being planted that the murderer's hiding behind, right? Yeah. You have to go back in time to prevent the planting of a tree.
Did you replace it with a sort of statue of yourself? Because that's the only way to do it.
Oh, really? No, I did flowers because I like beautiful things.
It's just funny if you put a statue of yourself, it's Ike holding out his cell phone. If you use your cell phone to scare the villagers, it's Ike holding out his cell phone. That's the statue that you get. I thought that was kind of funny.
How about if you hold out the lighter? Is one of you holding the lighter?
Yeah, no, I would imagine it would be the lighter if you did that, but I did my cell phone, so I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, that's funny. That is so funny. So I guess we should mention too, like when you die in this game, don't you have to start the entire chapter over? I mean, it's different at some points, but you have to kind of start back a decent ways. And it's really not that bad because it's like a 3 to 4 hour game. It's very short. So, within the span of dying, like if you just do the things up to where you died in the same order, and you can, as you're figuring it out, you can do it a lot quicker the next time. And so your time's not going to run out. Your overall time's not going to run out. So, there is that. So at least if you have to start over, not like, well, let's say Castlevania 4, which I've been playing recently, it's not sort of an aggravation when you lose all your lives and have to start
like every
over,
chapter is like 20 to 30 minutes, I'd say. And so even, if you have to start over, you're not losing that much progress.
Yeah, the worst part is having to go back through dialogue.
That is.
So, and this game can be pretty dialogue heavy at times,
I don't
right?
know, it's really dry delivery with a lot of the characters.
Yeah, for sure. So do you guys want to talk about like maybe some of the major decisions in the game that you have to make and what those sort of lead to? I know we probably all got some different endings.
Yeah, I think the endings hinge. I know one of the major choices you can make is whether or not to tell Marguerite you think that you're related to her. So if you say that you think you're an ancestor of hers, you get a different ending than if you just let it go and don't tell her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which way did everyone go?
Her.
Yeah, me too. How could
I
you
told
not?
her.
I mean,
You did.
Yeah.
I didn't. Can I tell you my reasons for not? Because I was like, okay, I've got 2 girls that are fairly attractive, and I kind of want to be able to choose between the 2 of them at the end. But now that I think about it, I'm related to her, so that's kind of creepy, isn't it? I didn't think about that as I was playing. I guess I was thinking with my brain and not with Ike. So
yeah, but in the end, does it depend on what ending you get that Homunculus has switched Marguerite and Dana, or is that just canon no matter what?
What do you mean switched?
Man, I don't want to confuse the issue here.
That might just be your ending.
No. Sorry.
When I played, Dana ended up staying in like the 1500s, and Marguerite came to the future, and at the end said she wanted to go back to her time period.
Okay. Yeah, well, my first ending was my first ending, Floyd. And then my second ending, I actually got Dana to stay. So there's a way to get her to come back to the future. Yeah, there is. And I think that was ending E, I believe. And D was my first ending. So, yeah.
I don't think I ever even found Dana again. I got ending D. So
okay.
Margaret went back to her time period, and you found out that Hugo, her brother, had overheard you telling her about the whole time travel thing, and he was causing all of your problems.
Yeah,
yes.
I think
he somehow made his own time machine.
That's something we forgot to mention, is that Hugo catches wind of your time travel device, and his father is the alchemist. And Hugo creates this thing that basically lets him track Ike's digipad, and so wherever Ike goes, Hugo ends up going.
Yeah. Dr. Wagner is the
yes, that's
the alchemist,
it. Yeah.
Right. He's your relative, and this game's really heavy on the theme of alchemy as well. I guess it's sort of the basis for the game. Did you guys do any research or anything about that? Like, the whole idea of the Philosopher's Stone, the homunculus. It's described a little bit in the game, but there's this whole idea that alchemy. Of course, before playing this game, the only thing I knew that alchemy was used for was, of course, it was this kind of false idea that you could turn anything, any type of element, to gold or silver, and that was the sort of purpose of alchemy. But that also there was this idea that you could create this homunculus, which was just sort of a clone of a human through alchemy and by using the Philosopher's Stone, which is just this sort of fictitious, if you will, sort of like ingredient that makes alchemy work. That's the way I sort of understood it.
Yeah, I thought the Philosopher's Stone
right.
is what turned elements into gold. So I wasn't totally... It felt like they were taking the terminology and not quite using it right. Yeah, I mean, I felt that way too, but I actually did some research on it, and I didn't... I guess the Philosopher's Stone is not something... I guess I don't know if it's something that's physical or non-physical, sort of just an idea. But the whole idea of the homunculus was something that was present in alchemy, something that they thought they could do. I mean, I did a little bit of research on it, and it was the game developers actually seems that they did sort of do their research in creating this game, and it holds up on that end. But it does come off as a little odd. There's not a lot of description in the game about it.
Well, so we went from the beginning of the game to the endings of the game. Did anybody have any favorite chapters within the game? I kind of like the one with convincing the guy, helping the guy write his movie. So his movie poster is like more interesting in the future. I thought that one was pretty cool.
Yeah. Did that kind of decide whether you got hit by a car or not? Wasn't that the same part?
Because the two girls are like, oh, his movie sucked. But then if you change the poster, they're like standing around talking about it, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Does it matter which movie idea you give him?
I don't know. I told him, basically you tell him your own story, that you're a time traveler looking to find your lost love or something, and he's
okay, because
that's a great idea.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go the wrong way and do different things, you can you can have some negative impact in doing that. So that's sort of part of the game. I don't know. I don't know that I had any really favorite chapters. The most aggravating chapter to me was finding the ladder. I do remember that distinctively. I did like the tower sequence though that Floyd kind of alluded to earlier. Where you're trying to escape the tower and you have to go back in time and, get the correct rope so that when you get pushed off, then, you're going to be able to grab the rope and save yourself, from another death, which I found it odd that the thing you would do is go find, a better rope, that you can hold on to as you let someone push you off, the top of a tower. How about just turn around and fight? Maybe that would be better.
It's kind of weird. Like Ike keeps, dying and going back in time. You'd think he would use some of that knowledge of, like, hey, maybe I shouldn't go to that street, or maybe I should just turn around.
Yeah, I think part of this is being an adventure game. They got to use some of that moon logic. This is a tradition in point and click adventure games, so why not here? Yeah. But yeah, just go back in time and get a gun or something.
Yeah, really.
Get your AK.
Yeah.
I like the chapter where you find out that the juggler was actually you time traveling.
Oh yeah, that was a cool one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt like I missed out on something there because I think you're supposed to, right at the beginning, run by him and he tosses you an egg. And I never got the egg, so that caused some troubles for me later on.
I wonder, how did that cause trouble?
Yeah,
I'm wondering, just because all I did with that was give it to the guy who was making the movie, and I don't remember it having like huge ramifications.
Because the walkthrough that I looked at, it said give the egg to the chef, and then the chef gives you a frying pan, and then you use the frying pan to not get stabbed.
Yep.
So I never got the frying pan. I got a sign from outside the photography shop, and I used that to protect myself.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow, really? I didn't even know that was an option. That's pretty cool.
Because I don't remember.
One would think you could just swing the frying pan at the person, but
Yeah, I don't remember picking up an egg. I mean, I did that when you write the note to yourself, but like I don't remember. I don't remember anything like that.
But wasn't the note inside the egg, right? Because it's like an egg and it's got like the strip in it that you pull out, and that's where you write the note on it. And that you toss it to yourself. Yeah, that was cool. It's pretty wild. It's cool to talk about these different endings now and to be able to discuss this. What did you guys think about the sort of the graphics in the game? How would you rate these as far as like PS2?
They were okay. Not anything special, I don't think. They were sort of average graphics. Although I did find some of the time periods much better looking than others. Like the...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's something... Yeah, we should mention the color palettes, right?
Yeah. The medieval one was just all brown. And it was really ugly.
That sepia tone.
Sepia. And there was one that was all black and white,
70s, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Can't recall. It was one of the past. Yeah. It was kind of an interesting choice, I thought, to do that.
Yeah. I think the game looked good enough. Like all the main characters, they looked all right. The townsfolk looked really bad. And a lot of them had some pretty bad voice acting and accents that just didn't make sense.
Ugh. It was probably my least favorite part of this game was the voice acting. That was the most grating to me, I think. it just didn't seem to line up with the action. It was like they gave lines to actors to read, but that the actors didn't really have any idea like what the situation was. One thing in particular was Marguerite. I thought was awful. There's this scene where you first meet her and you're saving her from the three women, and she's like, "Oh no, I am in danger."
Yeah.
It's not. She doesn't seem like she's upset. About basically being blackmailed by these three women. I don't know. It just comes off as sort of silly sometimes, and I got that from a lot of characters, but in particular hers. Hugo was a little annoying too. I don't know who did that voice, but man, that kid was very annoying. I don't know. What did you guys think about the voice acting? I can't be the only one.
Yeah, it was pretty weak on the whole, and the problem was that there was so much dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing is the PSP version, they re-recorded the voice acting and it's still bad.
So you mentioned playing the PSP. You started off with that. What were some of the differences, Sean? I'm just curious.
One of the differences, you could save anywhere, which would be convenient if you were playing it on a handheld. But I don't know why. I was just immediately put off. I wonder if there was a different zoom or like the aspect ratio or something, if they converted that somehow to get it on the PSP screen. But I just didn't like the way it felt or looked or controlled or whatever. I'm sure it would be fine if I gave it a chance, but I was just like, I played it for like 5 minutes and I was like, nope, I don't like this. PS2 time. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even really give it a chance. So
yeah, that's sort of shocking to hear from you, because you are a big proponent of handheld stuff, especially PSP and Vita. But I guess since it's PlayStation 2, you don't mind it that much. I know you're a big PS2 fan, so yeah, it makes a little more sense now. But when you first said that, I was like, what?
Yeah, it's hard. I can't really explain it. It's kind of weird, but it gave me a chance to play other stuff on the PSP anyway, so.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit, go back to like sort of the gameplay mechanics. I want to talk about the controls a little bit. We mentioned it's sort of point and click, and I like the menu system. I like that there wasn't a lot of options as going through the menu system. So if you needed to use something, it was fairly easy to figure out. But the controls for me were just awful. I don't know why they didn't. I don't know why they didn't decide to use that second thumbstick, so that you could sort of look around and change your view. I found a lot of times where I would just sort of get stuck and have to run out of a corner or something, and just sort of almost felt like I was running blindly.
I felt that way
through the
too.
game, which. I mean, there's no danger, it's not a platform or anything, so it's okay. But, with time restrictions and stuff, it made me very uncomfortable playing this game.
Right. I think every door to a building that you'd have to go into would have like a flashing icon on top of it. But the way the camera would always be positioned, it was hard to see what's a building you can go into. Because just the way the camera follows you is, or maybe doesn't follow you, is really something that I would complain about.
Yeah. How about you guys, Pam?
I
Sean?
thought at first it was a little weird that it used the bumpers instead of the right thumbstick, but I got used to it after a while, and I think it's just because it wasn't an action-heavy game, so it was fine for me to control the camera that way. Although at the same time, I kind of feel like it didn't really need to be a 3D exploration game. It all the running around felt not that necessary, especially since there was only a few things in each map that you could really interact with.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, you were just very limited in the things that you could do in this game. Like I said before, everything takes place in the same town. There's probably only like 3 or 4 places usually on each map that you can go to. Some places maybe a few more, but they really don't have any bearing on the game. Like you had mentioned before, Pam, that you didn't find Dana. Well, she was like in a wasn't she at an artist shop when you find her in the
right?
in the
Yeah,
past
she was
one?
at
Is that
the
right?
painter's shop or something.
Yeah, yeah. She was doing some posing for him or something like that. I don't know. It was kind of weird, but yeah. So that's where you find her before asking her to, return to the future with you, and you find out that like 4 years has passed, and she's sort of been there that long, whereas for you it's only been like hours, and so she doesn't know whether she wants to leave or not because she's made a comfortable life for herself in the past. But yeah. I don't know. What else about this game did you guys like or think should have been done better?
I wanted to touch on the controls. I actually didn't have a problem with the controls because I think I'm maybe more used to these kind of games on the PS2. 3D
okay.
camera controls with the right thumbstick are kind of more of a 7th generation, thing that they got perfected there.
Sure.
Not to say they weren't present in the 6th, because they totally were. But I think for a game like this, we had all kinds of 3D platformers back in the day that had those bumper camera controls, like Ratchet and Clank, I think, was that way. So it didn't bother me too much, and it's funny to hear you guys talking about it. It didn't need to be in 3D. I just started daydreaming about like this game, like made in one of the LucasArts engines or like the Scum engine. Like, would it actually work as a game that way? That would be cool to see. I wonder if anybody would ever try that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the possibility of this game being remade would be. I don't know if it's strong enough to hold up for a remake, or if it's something that would look better, more modernized or anything like that. I could definitely see this game being a sequel at some point. I feel like there's enough there, like story wise, to maybe go back and do a sequel. I don't know if that's ever been discussed or not, though.
No, I'm going to guess Konami still owns the IP, probably. So unless it becomes a pachinko machine, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Rich that there's a lot of cool ideas going on here, and I think they could have done more with it. But it was, for what it is, it's a pretty decent game. And probably something that was very new for its time, where that like you didn't really have any of these sort of narrative, sort of choose your own adventure, plot heavy games, or if they were, they were like in the like real small minority, and it's not something that came to the forefront until we had guys like David Cage, and I think Rich, you want to say something about him and how these two topics relate.
Yeah, I saw some reviews after I'd finished the game just about people comparing this game to David Cage games, just because of course we played Indigo Prophecy, and then next month we're playing Heavy Rain, which I'm very much looking forward to. But this whole idea of, making choices and then that leading to a specific ending. I know, like with most David Cage games, Sean, I think, has mentioned this before, that Cage's idea is that you play the game one time and then you put it down. The intention isn't that you go back and you continually keep playing the game. But with this game, it seems like they want you to go back and flush out all 5 endings, right? Because they have a completion percentage that you can earn through this game doing various things. And again, 5 different possible endings, and it tracks that. When you finish the game, it gives you the ending number, and then there you can go to the option screen and you could see which endings you've completed. And so I sort of feel like the reason that this game was made, and the duration is only, like we said, 3 to 4 hours, that there's supposed to be some sort of replayability or some reason for you to put this game back in when it only lasted 3 to 4 hours. So I guess what I wanted to know is if you guys are kind of satisfied with the endings that you got, and if you have any interest in flushing out any of the other endings in this game.
I was satisfied with the ending that I got. I got ending B.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what was that?
Dana decides to stay in the 1500s or whatever it is. Margaret is brought to the present by Hugo, and she's kind of being used as she's basically held hostage by Hugo.
Okay. She's being used as sort of a fulcrum,
yeah, that's
right?
the word I was looking for.
So that Hugo can get a homunculus.
That's the word I was looking for.
Okay.
You sort of you settle that dispute, and Margaret says that she wants to go back to her time period, and your little blurb at the end says, finally everything has come to an end, but it feels like an unsatisfactory conclusion or something like that, and that sums it up really well. Like, not the best ending, but that's what I got. I don't know if I want to go back.
So what happens with Hugo in your ending?
Oh, Hugo,
what happens with Hugo in your ending?
The fortune teller turned out to be Hugo's mother. Hugo tried to bring her back by using alchemy and a lock of her hair, but she became this sort of like spirit thing, and she took on the role of the fortune teller, and you bring Hugo over to see her, and then Hugo sort of reconciles, his selfishness to bring her back, and ends up getting crushed in the house when it collapses.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
well, that's crazy, man, because like my ending had nothing to do with the fortune teller. That the fortune teller was never flushed out in either of my endings. So that's cool to get to hear that.
So it's good that we're talking about the endings now, because it's giving us more insight into into the meat of the game. But I don't know if I really want to go back to it. Because I think what makes it difficult for me to go back is not so much the pacing, but just that everything is so like dry and so monotone.
Yeah. And one good thing about going back is that you can fast forward through dialogue on your next playthrough. So that's one thing that they did get right, because this game, like we've said, is very dialogue heavy. So same question, Pam, to you. Were you satisfied with your ending? You can talk about what endings you got. Were you satisfied with them? And do you have any interest in flushing out the other endings in this game?
My ending was okay. I liked finding out about the truth about Hugo and his mother. I did find it got a little convoluted. Like, I think time travel narratives are very hard to pull off, and this one didn't do it all that well. I don't think I would want to go back and replay it for the endings, sort of for the same reason. It is fairly dry. I'm not particularly attached to any of the characters or anything in the game, although I did read all of the endings, and I think that ending C sounds hilarious. I might look up a video of that.
Did anyone get ending C?
No,
I guess not.
No, I got the B ending as well. Same one as Floyd.
All right, Pam, you got to spoil it for us. What does ending C consist of? I have to hear this now.
So in ending
It's
C,
hilarious.
it goes back to like the 1500s. An elderly Hugo is there. Somehow both Hugos, the present Hugo and past Hugo, make contact, causing a dimensional paradox, so they both disappear. Ike goes back to his home time, thinking that everything's okay, lies down in the street, and then gets run over by a car.
Wow. That is the we did too much cocaine ending, I think.
I don't even know what to say.
So, Pam, I'm assuming you got ending B, is that right? Was it similar to Floyd's ending?
B.
Okay. All right. How about you, Sean? Same question.
I watched some of the other endings on YouTube, and I'll play through this game again, I'm sure, at some point. I still love this game. As much as this this conversation seems like a bunch of nonplussed people talking to each other about a rather mediocre game, I don't know, there's something like special about it for me. And I mentioned on the show when we were previewing this game that this was one of the games that when I really, really started getting into PlayStation 2 collecting, that I felt like I had found something really special and that nobody knew about. This was one of those first, like, quote unquote, hidden gems that I had in my collection. And just playing through it, it was something obscure and different from anything I'd ever played before. And yeah, I know, like, the voice acting's terrible, the graphics aren't that great, the moon logic is moon logic, and some of the endings are crazy or whatever. But as much as I finished the game, I put it back on the shelf, and watched some of the other endings on YouTube. I'm going to keep this one in my collection, and I bet you I will play through this game again at some point.
Yeah, I'm curious. When did you play this game? How long ago did you first play this game?
It must have been probably before I even got on RF Generation, so maybe like 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, it's been a while then. Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, maybe if and for me, I've really not played a game like this. I mean, I played a lot of point and click games back in sort of the PC days, or it was mainly like things on Nintendo, such as like Deja Vu or Shadowgate, were more the point and click type games I would play, but they weren't as sort of interactive as this one was. So I guess I wonder, like, the probably the most recent game that was similar might have been Indigo Prophecy that I played. That was sort of the same way, where you could sort of choose your own way and your own adventure in that sort of way. So I wonder if playing games like that, and since, like, you probably played this game before you played maybe Heavy Rain or Beyond Two Souls or Indigo Prophecy, maybe you having that earlier experience with this game made you maybe appreciate it more than someone like me.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I also think, I'm trying to think of a way to say this without, like, patting myself on the back or whatever, but I think I have like a no, I think the thing for me is I have a higher tolerance for these, like, mid-tier 6th generation games, because they were kind of like my bread and butter for a long time, and I, for a lot of the time, was looking for, like, not even games that were known as being good, but just known as being crazy and different. So even if the gameplay wasn't completely solid, I would always try and take out a good experience from games like this, that's why I love Disaster Report so much. That game is so crazy, and it's not like a structurally sound, like mechanically sound game, but it's amazing. You know what I mean? So I tend to
that's a good point.
I do tend to kind of lump Shadow of Destiny in with those kind of games, because for what it's worth, we don't really get a lot of those games made anymore, and we've talked about this on the show a lot, is that there's a huge divide between indie games that one person made that may be very well, but they're very good, but they're like lo-fi indie games, and these AAA blockbusters that we all know and love. So that's why, when a game like Yakuza 5 comes around, I'm going to play it for 100 hours and, never let go, because I know that games like this don't come around a lot often anymore. So,
and I guess it almost brings up that, like, game, non-game debate.
Yeah, I had that feeling too, Floyd, as I was sort of, playing through this game. If some of the games I know with the early PC games that we played at one time, we had this sort of feeling of game or, not game. But a lot of those were sort of walking games and more, sort of more linear games. What were the games we played? I know we played like Gone Home, and I can't remember what the name of the other one was.
I believe so.
That one as well, but there was a third one we played.
I think it was
too.
Dear Esther.
Dear
That's
Esther,
that's
yeah.
the one that
Dear Esther. Yeah.
that's the one that I
Yeah.
guess everybody loves to hate.
Yeah. Yeah, but I did have that similar feeling as well, Floyd, as I was sort of playing through this game. Sort of linear, but does give you some options. And kind of to go back to what you were saying, Sean. I mean, I really, I do like this game. It's not on the top of my list of things that we've played through our playthroughs, but I can see like the charm that you talk about that it has for you, and I definitely understand that. And there are some things that I do like about this game. The plot, for one, I like the whole idea behind this game. But I guess that for me is just a few things that, mechanic wise that I just couldn't get past. But I thought the intention of the game was really cool, and the entire concept was really awesome. And that's what got me excited about playing this game in the first place.
I'm right there with you on that. I think I'll come back to it. Maybe not right away. Maybe in like 6 months or a year. But
Yeah. I'm definitely not going to resell it. It's going to stay in my collection for sure. It's not going to go anywhere. But Sean, what endings did you get? You didn't really speak to that.
No, yeah, I think I got the same one as Floyd. One of the B endings.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and tell you what endings I got. I got D and E. The first time I played through the game, I got ending D, which seems like it ended in a similar way. I got the option of taking Dana back. I didn't take Dana back, or I went to the square without doing what I was supposed to the first time, and it was just sort of this standoff between Hugo and Marguerite, where he was sort of using her to get back at Hugo, and then I ended up saving her and destroying Hugo, because I went back and I burned some like the documents that were associated with making the time machine that Hugo had made, right? And so I went back in time, I destroyed those documents, I came back, and he just sort of disappeared. He and his sister just sort of disappeared and went back to their own time period. And it was if nothing had happened. So Hugo never found the plans to make the time machine that Dr. Wagner had created, and so it was if nothing had happened. The second ending was sort of similar with E. I was able to save Dana by Dana didn't want to go back, but I went to the future, back to the future, if you will, and went to the restaurant, and there was a note at the restaurant she worked at, and it was from her employer saying how he was so lucky to have her, and I took it back to her, and that gave her the feels. And so I was able to go and bring her back to the future. Oh, I guess I am important, now I can go back, a little bit ridiculous. And then when I took her back, of course, Hugo captured her and tried to kill her, and just had to deal with Hugo and save the day and ride off into the sunset with the young lady. So the second ending with saving Dana was kind of cheesy and weird, and it almost made me wish that I hadn't played the game the second time, if that makes sense. I really like the ending I got where I went back and I destroyed the plans, because logically that sort of made the most sense to me, if that, you know what I mean there. So, and, just sort of putting things back together that way, and then just sort of going back to the future and living out my life. Sans Dana. It's made a little bit more sense.
So is this one of these games with like a good ending and a bad ending, or just different endings?
Well, I guess C is
Yeah.
kind of weird, but
I think some are better than others, and definitely at the B ending, Ike ends up in a bar and he literally says something doesn't feel right. So I definitely feel like, even though the B ending to me was satisfying, they're definitely, I wouldn't call it a bad ending, but like Rich was saying earlier, they really want you to play through and experience all the endings, especially so you can get the special ending once you do all of them or whatever, which I didn't watch. I guess that's
really?
the EX ending.
Okay, I didn't know that was a possibility. So there's 6 endings then, I guess, if you get all of the possible outcomes.
Yes, because there's two Bs, and then, yeah. A, B, B2,
Wow.
C, D, E, and then the EX 1 and 2. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff to go through. This is a real, completionists kind of game. If you really want to go that route, if you're not satisfied when you put down the controller and you hear your main character say something still doesn't feel right, So.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. I had no idea. I thought it was just the 5 endings and that was it. I had no idea it continued on, and that there was additional endings, or that there was even a B1 and B2 ending, which is surprising to me. Huh. Very cool. Well, is there anything else that anyone wants to say about this game? Want to throw out there about it?
Pam, do you regret joining us on this?
No, I've been wanting to play this for a while. I had picked the game up about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or so, after someone had told me about it. I really, really liked the concept, although I just found the execution was a little off. I actually found that everything was just a little bit off in this game. I mean, even it was supposed to take place in Germany, and besides the street signs, like the street names and sort of the lattice work on some of the houses, nothing really said Germany or even Europe to me.
Yeah. Well, the cobblestone, maybe. That's a good point. Yeah, it could be kind of anywhere, but it seems like they really focused to set it in Germany, and I guess it's because of the sort of the whole tie to alchemy. So they felt that they had to set it in like a European nation, and I don't think it probably wouldn't have worked well like as in the U.S. You know what I mean, or in Asia or somewhere like that. So I guess that makes the most sense. But I kind of agree with you. There wasn't anything in the game that felt really kind of German to me, that kind of embraced that setting. But besides that, yeah, that's a good point. All right. Anything else?
I've got something in my notes here about Bishonen style and ambiguous characters.
Yeah, I wrote that in, and we talked about this whole idea of Bishonen, which is, where they take male characters and make them look feminine. I kind of felt that way about Ike a little bit, and I think that's just kind of the style, the art style. And as far as ambiguous characters, the homunculus was really sort of an ambiguous character. I don't know, was it just me? I couldn't tell if it was male or female, and maybe that's sort of the point. Maybe it's just supposed to be neither. Maybe it's just supposed to be a clone, as homunculus is. But as far as the voice acting, the style, the way it looked, I just couldn't tell. It was very ambiguous to me.
I think Ike refers to homunculus as he, but I agree completely. I believe it was meant to be ambiguous.
I think the effects put on Homunculus's voice acting was kind of cool. Yeah,
I agree with that. And the way the game kind of held it and didn't reveal like who Homunculus was, and sort a few chapters into the game, I thought that was well done. I really enjoyed that. And still, I mean, once you met him or her, you really could not. It really just didn't make a lot of sense as far as being able to sort of figure out why you were doing what you were doing, and then you get sort of the grand reveal at the end where you're basically doing it to try to save the homunculus, right? Try to save his life, and that's without you then, which is a big plot point in this game, without you, the homunculus cannot exist. And so it's in his best interest, to trick you into helping him out. All right. So I think that wraps us up for Shadow of Destiny for PS2. I did want to mention that next month we are going to be playing our 100th game in our playthrough. I don't know if you guys can believe that or not, but we have actually played through 100 games. Now, we haven't done 100 shows, but we have played 100 games, and I know some months we used to do a retro and a modern playthrough. So we would play, one for each month. And then some months, I think one month we did an Activision, for Atari 2600 month where we had a competition. Usually in December, we do some competition. So we'll throw in, 3 or 4 games, but, over the course of, I want to say about 3 or 3.5 years, we've played through 100 games, and that's a pretty big milestone. And so we are celebrating that milestone by playing Heavy Rain. And we will have a special guest on the show next time who will be playing through the game with us. And we're really excited about that. Not going to say who that is, but, you guys will definitely know him, right? Heavy Rain, you guys want to tell us a little bit about Heavy Rain? Sean, you've played through this game before, right? And Pam?
Yeah, sure. I mean, fans of the David Cage games that we talked about, people who joined us for Indigo Prophecy, this is another one of Quantic Dream's kind of, again, it's like an on-rails adventure game with a lot of QuickTime events, and I am looking forward to replaying this game because I was absolutely floored and blown away by it the first time I played it. I drank the Kool-Aid. I was totally into it, plot holes and all, and we will talk about those.
Me too. I think I'm looking forward to the discussions more than the game, but yeah. It's a pretty well done game. You're seeing the same story from 4 different viewpoints. So that's a really cool thing that wasn't really done before.
Yeah. I'm really excited. I'm the only one on this podcast, and the only one that will be on this podcast that has never played this game before. I mean, as you guys know, I didn't get my PS2 until 2 Christmases ago.
You mean PS3?
So
sorry.
I missed out on Heavy Rain. No, thanks for correcting me, my PS3. So I am really excited about playing this game, and honestly, my wife, I let her read about this game as far as just sort of an outline of, or a description of the game, and she's super excited for me to start this game and wants to sit in with me, because I think I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're kind of these people that get sucked into watching like, these, 2020 and these, Dateline, like murder mysteries and things like this. And so for it to have, sort of a murder mystery element with, I believe what this is called, the, Origami Killer.
Sir.
Is that right? She is really into that. And so this will be a fun one for us to sit down on the couch and, kind of go through together. And so for me, that's going to be the, one of the best parts of this game, other than talking to you guys about it when it's over, right? All right. So that wraps us up for Shadow of Destiny. Thank you so much for joining us, Pam. We appreciate you coming on the show for this one. And you want to take a minute to go ahead and plug your stuff and where everyone can find you?
You can find me on YouTube. My channel name is Cannot Be Tamed. You can find me on Twitter at Jasyla _. That's JASYLA _. Or you can look for my podcast Media Mavens on any podcast app.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Great show, guys. Appreciate you joining us. And until next time.
Well, Well, that'll wrap up another episode. Thanks again for listening, and an extra thanks to everyone who participated in the playthrough and joined us on the forum at RF Generation. Thanks again to Pam for joining us on the show. Check out her channel, Cannot Be Tamed, on YouTube. Believe it or not, in November we'll be taking on our 100th game. After much deliberation, it was decided that Rich would help us take on David Cage once again, as this time around we'll be playing through 2010's Heavy Rain for the PlayStation 3. Log on to rfgeneration.com to join us in finding the origami killer. Thank you as always for listening, and we'll see you next time on the RF Generation PlayCast.